Okay, so today is Sunday, but not Easter because, people like to do things on Easter, I guess. Easter egg hunts, eat lots and lots of chocolate, um, ham, other things, whatever. So, and it looks like not everybody got the memo, but it's okay. We don't have an agenda per se. I want to talk a little bit about this um, amazing work that Jeff has started doing, and some of the other guys in the Wednesday hardware project meeting that we have. Um, and actually, I want to get your thoughts. I want to get some feedback um, on, um, on the project and some potential challenges and ideas. But before we do that, does anybody have anything that they want to jump in and chat about, bring to the table today?
Well, looks like everyone here has been here before, so
Everyone has been here before.
yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
All right. So, Jeff, um, Jeff Burrell, as you may recall, has been working on a sort of 2068 extended, what could have been the future version. And as he's configured it, it's a little standalone box with a keyboard port and a monitor port and all the other jazz. um, but a few weeks back, Jeff decided to take a left turn at Albuquerque and instead take all this work that he's done and throw an expansion bus on it and make it such that you can plug it into the back of the 2068. One might even consider it a 2060, just based on the feature set. Um, and so we've been working through this in this Wednesday meeting that we have to talk about hardware projects and stuff. It sort of started out as the project meeting for the TS Pico, and then it has morphed into projects. Um, and what it has done is and we've pulled Carl into it too now, so that hopefully he can get a lot of his um, explaining about hardware features energy expended on Wednesdays, and be a little less a little briefer on regular meetings. We'll see what happens. um, hey Jeff, can you talk about the features in the 2060 sort of as it is today? I mean, we still have some arguing slash discussion to do. Your mic is off though. You're muted with Zoom.
I probably make more sense muted. So, um, well, at any rate, uh, David was giving himself and the rest of the Wednesday crew too little credit. This 2060 project originally came up because of a realization that 2068E, while it's an interesting project, is probably uh, somewhat niche, but a 2060 expansion board um, would take us kind of in the direction of what Timex was thinking about for the 2068, plus also add some extra features and functionality. So I'm going to go ahead and grab, if you don't mind,
Yep.
David.
I turned on the screen sharing.
Okay. Wow. And you didn't even have to be reminded by Adam.
I know.
Okay. So uh, this is the 2060 board design, the hardware design as it exists today. I've been actually working on the hardware design a little bit. So essentially, what we have is we have a port to plug into the 2068. This will have the standard uh, female card edge connector. And out the back, we have a place for expansion boards if you want to plug them in. We've also made provision for 4 slots for people who want to develop their own hardware for the 2068 with this expansion. The capabilities that the board has are a serial port, RS-232. The UART is actually going to reside in the FPGA. We'll have VGA output, and I know that there's a desire to have HDMI. That that may come in the next version. The thing is that I haven't done HDMI in an FPGA yet, so I know this will work. So we have, um, as I said, VGA video. Uh, right now, this is designed to take over the function of the TS Pico video to give you better video output. There will also be an 80 column terminal display in here that could be switched in as well. There is an I2S DAC that will allow us to embed 2 AY chips or whatever other sound hardware would fit into the FPGA. So you could end up with stereo sound coming out of this beast. We have a new Pico processor. This is this is one of the new 2350 Picos. This particular board has the advantage that it breaks out all 28 I/O pins for the Pico, so it allows quite a bit more functionality. And this is going, along with the SD card, is going to take over the functions of the TS Pico mass storage device that we have now. We also have another mini Pico up here that's designed to handle USB keyboard, and if I can get the firmware hacked around well enough, it would also be able to do game controllers, mice, and mass storage as well. You'd need a USB on the go hub to do that, but that's available.
Hmm.
Then there would also be a Wi-Fi chip available. I elected not to go with the Pico W because some people may not want Wi-Fi. So again, this is something that people could add later on. Let's see. I've broken. Then of course the FPGA is going to handle the interface with the TS2068 data bus, and it'll act as essentially the main switching point and allow the TS Pico to concentrate primarily on mass storage, which is where it's best used. I've also brought out the mic and the earphone in case you want to use tape on your 2068 yet. Then over here, I've also brought out the composite video and the audio from the 2068. So you can use a standard composite monitor and external speakers if you would like. So those are the major functions on this board. Other than the fact that this also has a power jack that will supply power to the 2068. So, you'll just go ahead and plug into the back here and you don't have to worry about snaking cables through. There'll actually be an internal cable here that'll connect into the power. So with the power, with the tape, and with the audio and video outputs, you'll have access on the back panel for essentially, I guess, anything that you would like. So that's where we're sitting right now. Obviously, there's going to be a fair amount of software involved in this in both the mass storage Pico and in the Pico that deals with the joystick and the USB. The joystick was added so that if you decide you want to load a Spectrum Core, you would have a Kempston compatible joystick available.
What that little header's for?
That header is designed to break out to a 9-pin D sub connector on the back panel.
Okay. What's the
So
header on the left of that one?
This one here,
Yeah.
um, that doesn't that doesn't exist. That's a PS2 keyboard connector.
Okay.
Well, that's in that's to get a keyboard working in case all else fails.
Okay.
So, so essentially, this is designed to have the functionality that the 2060 would have given the 2068 back in the day using more modern hardware and a few upgrades, better video and possibly better sound. For instance, I already have the AY cores working in the 2068E, and of course the VGA has been around forever, so it's pretty straightforward. So the question, I guess I'll turn this back over to you, David.
Well, I have a question for you because it has not occurred to me yet. The board, does it have an onboard audio jack?
Yeah, it does.
Ah, okay. Okay. That's all right. So you know, obviously this is a circuit board populated full of parts, and that gets us like 50% of the way to a physical 2060 unit. Oh, let me remember that spotlight. Okay. And in order to get the rest of the way, you need an enclosure. You need a thing that the circuit board goes in that, potentially looks reasonably close to the one that, that we have seen in the pictures. Um, and then there's just sort of all the ephemera that surrounds that, right? Um, so with the enclosure, what we've talked about is that SD card slot will actually will have a little riser that comes up, and the SD card slot would be in the front bezel of the front, sort of panel space of the 2060 enclosure. Um, and the other thing that we've talked about is a little OLED display unit, one of these really small units. It's about 128 pixels across and 96 pixels tall. It's enough. It's big enough to display messages on the front of the enclosure. The messages are going to be really small if you go with two lines, or reasonably decent to read if you go with one line, and it might be something like telling you what the current file is that you've mounted with the TS Pico feature set. And then Ryan or Carl, I can't remember who suggested this, that we're initially thinking about a height that is similar to the height of the original 2060 that you have seen in the pictures. That is just a little bit taller than the computer itself, and that'll give you room to make a board if you want to build custom expansion boards of your own. They can be a certain amount of height and then a certain amount of length, or if you really want to go crazy, a taller upper half of the case. Um, and then I don't know if you saw it, but there were some holes in the center of the um, circuit board, and the point of those holes is that the case itself can bear a smallish load, like an LED screen or LCD screen. Yeah, yeah. The 2060 did not really exist, Adam. There's a specification document that we got from Lon Hildreth, and the date on that document is like January 24th, 1984. And of course, Timex 4 weeks later was like, we're out. So the only thing that we know that exists is that picture, and that thing is probably just a mock-up, right? I
It's
mean,
probably
the
made
Yeah,
of
handy.
balsa wood or something.
what's that?
It's probably made of balsa wood.
Yeah, yeah, whatever they make those things out of, right? But the document that Lawn Preserved does have an engineering drawing of the rear of the thing, and it shows, for instance, the clear split between the two shells. It shows a little channel, a sort of lifted channel where you could run wires to the original connectors. We're not doing that. So 3D printing, at least, outside of the home, uh, 3D printing at the professional level has gotten to the point where uh, they can make something that big, about 16, 17 inches wide, which is really pretty amazing. And so we have to design a lower half and an upper half, and Joe's the point person for that. Joe's been voluntold. um, and I pulled up Tinkercad and just fleshed out uh, a shell the size of the bottom, about I think it was about 17 inches or 16 inches wide. I don't remember exactly. Um, and then priced it on JLC. It's not terrible. It's not great. I think that the production cost of just the enclosure itself is going to be about $45. It might come down in volume, and I have to shop around to see if there are um, other places that can do that besides besides them, but they may be the cheapest. I don't know. And then sort of working your way out from that, does it come with a box? You know, it comes with a manual because there's going to be enough features in there that it needs documentation. So the manual, it's not terribly expensive. They're probably about five-ish dollars for the production cost of the manual. Um, and the thing that I have been looking into is short run box printing, right? And our 2068 came in a box with flaps on the end. But I feel like there was some product that came where there were no flaps on the end. It was just a sleeve that slid over the foam, which is also an option. Um, and then if you have a nice
Wait, this is
box,
gonna have foam wrapped around it?
I don't believe it's
Wait,
going to have
what?
foam. It's not that that's going to be a little bit of a stretch. Although there are these. I've only started looking into this stuff, but there are these weird urethane packs. I can't remember what they're called, but they have a plastic outer wrap, as it were, and you can I don't know, you activate it in some way, right? And you put your object in, you put your one pack down, put your object in, put the other pack down, somehow activate them in an enclosed space, and it just fills up and becomes um, a safety package. Um, but again, printing a nice box is not free, and then you have to add another box on the outside to protect the box on the inside. So this is where you come in. Is how
I
much?
should say something about the boxes. I
Yeah,
don't know if it might be helpful or a connection I can make for you, David.
yeah.
But in my Astrocade world, and maybe you get the messages. I'm not sure if you've kept up with some of them, but there's someone who's making a new Astrocade cartridge and is coming with a box and a manual and the cassette, not a cassette, a cartridge with a that's going to actually have a 3D printed stuff, but the person is doing all of it locally. Are you doing it locally too? Is that how, or are you trying to do it out of how is it working for you?
I have not gotten to that point. I haven't
Okay.
looked at any local printers yet. I just was like doing
But
some
it's not cheap. I think he's spending like $45 to do all that. So
45 bucks to do.
to do the box, the manual,
Oh,
the
that's like total
PCB.
wholesale price.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So, but if you want, I can put you in touch with them.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Right. Because, the boxes themselves, the ones with the end flaps, the folks that I found so far online cannot print a box big enough in a short run capacity. Um, and so that's when I started looking at sleeves because maybe they were easier to do because they don't have tabs and whatnot. Um, or it can be a standard, sort of some standard size box that the thing comes in and that fits the thing itself reasonably well, and then some full color label basically that gets applied to it, um, applied to the box, and then a box that goes around the outside because you want that label preserved. Um, so um, ultimately, my questions are, uh, and it seems to me like it's an automatic yes, but if you have the 2060 board, do you want the enclosure too? Um, and Mike, you're a collector, so I'm going to call on you. You got your Zoom muted. I don't know.
I had to get the mouse.
There you go.
Well, I guess man, you want to know about? Yeah, I would think I would like to have a case because it's protected because you never know if something flies, it hits the board,
Hmm.
might circuit or something.
Okay. Now, how about a pretty box? How important is
Uh,
a pretty box to you?
I don't know. I mean, because the Pico didn't come in a pretty box. It came in a storage box.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. Absolutely.
I mean, because by the time you pay, for the box, colorful box and this and that, how much is the whole unit going to cost?
And that
With the
that's another
board and
question.
everything.
That's another question. Right. Exactly.
It might just be $500, $600 by the time you get it all done. I don't know.
Right. Um, hey, Tom or
And
Larry.
I'm on Social Security.
And that thank you. That's exactly the point that I was making the other day, Mike, is that, there's a there's a sort of spectrum of us, right? There's people who are still working and there are people who
Right.
are retired, and to me, uh, you know, there's people who have a lot of, I don't know, romance for the 2060 unit, right? And that it would sort of complete their collection. And so that's where I think, the challenge between the features and the enclosure and then the price point, you know. Um, Larry or Tom, do you guys have any thoughts? I don't think either of them.
Are they
Okay.
there?
Like Tom says he would buy a box and a unit encased. Okay. All right. Larry, Larry, do you even have a 2068 or are you all 1000s? Maybe he stepped away. Okay.
Well, I think I'm the last one, or maybe Jeff and Joe. The box to me is, I mean, it's cool,
Mhm.
uh, but they seem to get messed up no matter what you do to a box. I mean, I've tried to take care of my boxes over the years, unless they're made of like something that's very durable, they just fall to pieces on all my things.
Yeah.
So I think I'd like to have the plastic case surrounding it, like the TS Pico did. Um, and the ma great manual that came with it, that was awesome. And I think it's kind of outdated nowadays, isn't it? Now that I think about it, probably, but maybe not. And yeah, but the anything else would be bonus, you know.
Okay.
And you'd probably have to do all or nothing because if you did it like, oh, if you want 10% of the people to get boxes, then you guys can buy boxes, except you're not going to be selling thousands of these.
Right.
So you have to, everyone has to buy in.
Right. And yeah, exactly. I mean, really start saving. Hey, Larry.
Yes. No, I'm not. I've only had a ZX81, so the 2068 or 60, whatever. No, not interested.
Okay. Okay.
So
He
I'm
doesn't
a
need that
big
much
Z
power.
guy.
You don't
Huh?
need that much power, Larry.
Yeah, I need to keep it simple.
You were satisfied with the original power price campaign. I don't remember what the exact expression was, but there was something about the power and the price with for the 1000
My
launch.
case is still good.
Yeah, I got one of those. It's a little eaten up in some corners and down. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I bought this one on eBay, as the son was selling them, his father had four of them.
Oh my gosh,
And when I got it, it's a brand new unit.
that's craziness.
Could you show it up again? Because I
Yeah, let me
actually didn't
spotlight
have you
you.
highlighted, so I didn't see I didn't see it except in a tiny window. Oh, check it out. Yeah. I have one, but mine's pretty beaten up. Pretty beaten up indeed.
Yeah.
Hmm. As long as you have a family on there, and I want to be part of that family, David. On that 2060 box, I want to be in there using the computer like this, do do do, computing away.
Well, and the new AI, uh picture model thingies. They're really good. We could
I
just
know. I've been using them all week actually to do some weird stuff for the Astrocade, and
there you go.
yeah, oh my
I
gosh.
want the family in the photo to have extra hands and things.
Six finger hands. Um, okay, right. And so Tom gets us to the next thing, which is what's the price point, right? And um uh I the 5 600 is just right out. That's completely unrealistic in my opinion. I am shooting way lower than that. I would like to shoot way lower than that. There's going to be some.
Fredo they had on eBay. It was $500 for the
Well,
deal.
yeah, okay. So
It's still on there if you're looking for it.
yes,
Are
that
you talking
Credo.
about the
Yeah, I know.
keyboard?
Yeah, and see,
Yeah.
that's the thing is that there are people with crazy. Okay, so Tom, you're saying 200. Okay. Mike, what seems like a reasonable number to you?
200 ain't too bad, I don't think.
Okay. I mean, it's
I
less
mean,
than the
because
cost of.
The Pico is what, well, the Pico and the others, like, you have it sell for 120.
Yep, that's correct.
So,
Um, okay. But within your budget, is that reasonable?
well, I probably could pay on PayPal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, you're on a fixed income, right? And so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Within your budget, does that seem reasonable?
it seemed reasonable.
Okay, okay. One less Starbucks for the month. Not as many avocado toasts. Okay.
Well,
Uh,
this 2050, 2060, is that going to be the micro drives or going to be floppy drives or what?
SD cards, because there are
Oh, oh,
no there are
SD.
no micro drive tapes, and floppy drives impossible. There's none being made new, right? And getting floppy
Or
disks
CD.
themselves.
Yeah,
Uh,
No, stay away
Blu-ray?
from that stuff. No
No.
moving parts,
but you want a storage medium that you can, well, some people want a storage medium that they can write to. That's why it needs to be
Right,
right?
like an SD card.
right.
Um, but one of the things that we are looking at is a um, microdrive enclosure that has an SD card slot in it
Okay.
for the people who are just, I must have a micro drive looking thing.
Is this Carl's idea? I
This is,
bet it's
well,
Carl's idea.
actually, no, someone, someone a couple meetings back said something, or it was in an email, and I looked at it, I was like, oh, uh, maybe it was you, Tom. Maybe it was, yeah, I think it might have been you that said something recently in an email about microdrive enclosure. And so I reached out to Joe and I'm like, Joe, is there an STL, a 3D model of a microdrive, and we could take it and just adapt it and put you know, an SD card with one of those extension cables in it for people who have Picos. And it would work with the 2060 as well. It's me.
Well, does the 2060 have a USB so you can use the modern printers?
Well,
Because it's
it'll have a
hard.
USB.
Sometimes cut metrics.
Using
Well,
modern printers, it's funny you should ask that, Mike, because we had an extended discussion about that on Wednesday. And the challenge is, of course, driving the printer from the 2068, because the 2068 only in its ROM, it only has routines to talk to the 2040, or AlphaCom printer. Um, and making it talk to anything that's USB, using Epson's Escape ESC 2P protocol, um, is it boils down to a fair amount of work, and so uh, there's two potential solutions to this. One is that as it is now, the TS Pico, if you try to lprint or list or do a copy command, Gustavo's modifications to the ROM, they capture that and in theory send it to the Pico. The Pico doesn't capture it yet. That's just not a thing that Ricardo has implemented yet. But you can capture the printout to a text file, for instance, and save it on the SD card. And then, you know,
What about the special characters?
I Gustavo would have to talk about that.
Ah,
I don't know that for sure. And then the alternative is this card that Tim in New Zealand has been working on that emulates a 2040 and has a web server on it. This thing is insane. Um, you print to it, and it like I said, it emulates a 2040, and the way that the 20 data comes to the 2040 is one row at a time. It just writes across the row of pixels and writes the next row of pixels and so on. Tim's software looks at that, captures it, and then essentially does OCR on the resulting content. And he can and then in the web server that runs, um, it generates an image that looks like a printout, and you can choose. This is the one of the parts that's really silly. You can choose whether it's ZX printer or 2040, and really all that does is set the background color. So the ZX printer has this like gray, silver background color, but the 2040 has a white background color. The other thing that he does is, uh, but behind the scenes, he turns that if it's a printout into ASCII text, and so you can download that and literally print it off. And um, he maps the Timex funky graphics characters to the ASCII equivalents. It's not perfect because the ASCII equivalents are taller than they are wide, but it gets you 80% of the way there. Gets you representation. But I think Ryan, you were making the argument about, if you were using it for word processing, you'd want big printer capabilities.
Oh, yeah. I was trying to figure out what that really meant, other than I would imagine if you were using a word processor on the 2068 back in the day, you were and you had a, say, a parallel printer hooked up, the intention was you were just going to print on there like you had a big computer, and not be some sort of trying to emulate the look and feel of the 2040 thermal printer. So you probably weren't going to use the graphics characters um, unless perhaps somehow your printer setup supported this in some way or had some characters you could use. Um, you know, yeah, I know back in the day with the PC, you had the little line drawing characters that typically would connect on the printer, I think, as I
Hmm.
remember.
Hmm.
Um, so, but I don't know that they ever really had all, or at least all the block graphic kind of equivalents. Um, then again, I don't know what any of those did or if they ever did any graphics. I don't think that that was ever a thing for that kind of setup, word processing setup. I think they were just text only. So I was just trying to think, like, okay, if you had the printer hooked up by some data
Well, I mean,
path.
I can speak to some degree about, I mean, the way I used my C64 back in the day, getting Atari in there, Commodore in there, but I used to have a couple of word processors and I used them with my Commodore printer. And so I didn't have to have an Epson adapter, which you actually was a kind of a pain to use, but, and I could use the special print characters, but like if I was writing reports for school or whatever like that, I would, I just use the text stuff. I didn't even want to use the additional features. Like the and plus you would have had to use special commands to go through all that and like you'd come like you'd get like like in the old days when you'd have like WordPerfect and you'd get a little booklet and it would just have all the escape keys and like all the controls and the alts and all that stuff so you could get all the things that you wanted and then you'd have this document that you couldn't read on your screen but when you print it you could see it fine but it was awful. So I didn't bother with any of that. I could use bold. Yes. Did I want to? I guess I could because I think that was easy with like a slash in the front or at the end, but like for the most part, like Ryan is saying, it wasn't worth the effort
Yeah.
unless for me.
I'm going to share my screen real quick because Lloyd Drager wrote these two self-published books about doing machine code on the 2068, and in the book, the document itself, he tells you he wrote this thing, and this is 252 pages. Did it on his 2068 with MScript, which was one of the two word processors that did 64 column mode. And the Airco printer, yeah, the Airco printer interface was separate from the Airco disk system. But yeah, to your point, it went to a Gemini, a Star 10X. I don't know if you guys remember those things, but and he's got like full table of contents. I suspect he did this by hand. Table of contents. I don't recall that MScript has that feature. Uh, and there are tables sometimes in here. I mean, it looks like it was done on any computer, not just a 2068, right? Because that's what everything looked like in the 80s.
Is that
If you
actually only
count,
68 columns wide? That's pretty good.
it's actually 64 columns. I counted
64.
it when I looked at this document, and it
Oh.
definitely looks like it was done on MScript. And that's what he probably saw on the screen was exactly that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he probably used the space bar to, you know, get these things lined up versus
No, I bet it had a justify mode. Looks like.
oh, the justify, yes, but
Could
the
use tabs.
yep, yeah, the left right justification, but to do this, they'd
Oh,
be
okay.
looking at like like Tim said, tabs or spaces. Um, but I don't know if it's in this document or if it's in another document. You know, there's more of this kind of thing, but even more complex little tables. There's one where it's not this one, it's the intro one, where he shows you how to calculate from from binary to decimal. There's like little arrows and drawn with carets and minuses and whatever. um, and there were a number of printer interfaces available. There was one from Tasman, and there was one from a guy in Florida. There were a couple that plugged into the cartridge port. There were at least two that plugged into the cartridge port. I don't remember if Larkin did. There was enough of them that, and each came with its own little piece of driver software. There was enough of them that you had to, account for it in your program for the printing. And at one point, um, I think it was Fred Dackbauer and someone else figured out how to write what they called a universal printer driver that would talk to one of like six different models of printer. And you just, loaded this little software first, and then you loaded your word processor or whatever. But that's the ultimate challenge. There is that, um, for printing, you have to tell the 2068 how to do it, how to talk to anything that's not a 2040, and then you have to have something else on the board, and that's something else that might be that smaller Pico that Jeff showed us, that is initially intended to read keyboard, but as he said, external USB. So um, the potential's there. It's just a matter of writing the software. So,
I guess the question I have is, were there any programs for the Spectrum? Or no, not programs. I guess it would be. Were there any hardware add-ons to the Spectrum for video mode enhancements, or were the only 64 column word processors like TazWord, use the tiny fonts?
um, at the time, the hardware add-ons were not there was not a video thing that added more columns. It was software columns, just like Tasman did. Um, Now, there's something called a ZX HD, I think, that Byte Delight, Ben at Byte Delight sells, and I'm not entirely sure what's on the inside of it. I think that there's a Raspberry of some sort on the inside of it that does the video signal generation. And it might have additional features. There's the ULA Plus specification, which I think the ZX HD implements, and that would get you 64, potentially 80 columns if you used it the right way. Yeah,
Okay, but those are all new things.
those are all new things. Yep.
Yeah. I remember watching the Spectrum show over the years, and it was either using compressed fonts or they would do the horizontal scrolling thing to get you, 80 columns.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, the old
Oh, so I was just wondering how much Spectrum software that may run on a 2068, or if anyone knows what of all that other than TazWord's the only one I know, but it was a Spectrum program. But I guess maybe it was a 2068 version they made. I can't remember.
for TazWord. Well, folks, yeah,
Yeah.
there was a 2068 version, but there was also folks who used a Spectrum ROM and ran the
Oh,
Spectrum
sure.
version. Yeah.
Um, so I'm wondering, like, so the other thing I don't know too much about was these different ways of connecting printers. Were they all sort of super unique? I mean, obviously you had the software you mentioned that talked to either one, but like, what did you wind up having to do, or is it just that they were on different port numbers that you
Um,
had to send data to, or was it more complicated than that?
so the Tasman, um, off the top of my head, it used a Motorola 6821 I think, which is a kind of I think it's a parallel um interface doodad. Um, so Tasman used the 6821. Um I don't know what the Airco used. Uh, let's see
So you're
here.
talking to those different chips then over the
Yeah,
port.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So there's different chips and that's, part of the challenge. Yeah. Um,
Well, the back in the day, everyone used, well, I shouldn't say everyone, but most people used the standard parallel Centronics output, which an 8255 or, a Pico could easily bit bash. So,
mhm, mhm.
Well, I'm just wondering what would be practical in the sense of software that exists that people might, because if you're gonna do word processing on it to send to a printer, you're gonna want use one of the existing software packages. So then it's a question of what do those things are able to talk to. I know several of these things typically supported, a couple printers, couple of disk systems.
Yeah. Um, let's look at
Well, you don't really
John.
need to send directly to a printer. There's Rich Pimmer's last name, Meller. That's it. Over in UK, built out of a Raspberry Pi, a printer driver. Basically, it talks to the Spectrum or whatever, and then it basically runs Linux on it. So it then use LPR or whatever the cups are, and so basically the Linux box being this little Raspberry gets data from the Spectrum and then sends it to whatever printer is configured locally. So the Spectrum has no idea what the end printer is. It just says I'm going to send it out, and then the Raspberry Pi just basically does all the processing and sends it to the local printer, whatever it may be. Something
Mhm.
like that could be done, where you let all the
Oh,
heavy lift
sure. And
over on the processor,
that's what I've
coprocessor.
been thinking about. But the problem is, what printer does that thing emulate? Because all the software is expecting some sort of printer interface,
Yeah.
right? It's not just going to send characters to the bus arbitrarily. It's there. The software is going to be designed for whatever thing must be emulating one of the interfaces of the day, I would suspect.
Well, so there were for some reason this Olivetti inkjet printer at 2300 something was really popular. And when I say for some reason, it was probably because it was really cheap. But the Okidata, um, Gemini 10X, and that Gorilla Banana printer. I don't know if you guys remember that. That was real popular.
I remember the ads for that thing. Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that was I think it was a Seikosha printer, and uh, there was a Commodore version of it. Um, I don't think there was an Atari version of it, but there was a Tandy version of it, I think too. Which is on different shelves basically.
All right,
Um,
so good looking to answer Ryan's question. So the if you look up so RWAP is the company name for which it was called the Retro Printer. On GitHub, there's the printer to PDF, and it says that it captures an Epson ESC/P or ESC/P2. ESC stands for escape because a lot of them were basing escape code, send escape, send a code, and that's a command to the printer that won't print the escape, to the printer. It says, "Oh, that's a command for me. I'm going to interpret it," instead of saying, "Oh, I need to print that on the paper." So I think Pickle is very similar to that. Also, the HP printer control language is also escape oriented.
Well, that's the
So
printer control language. That's not the interface that the software that's running on the 2068 has to talk to.
no, but you're going to basically. So if you're saying, "Well, gee, I'm running MScript or I'm running whatever the word processor is," what printer do I define? Anything that is escape/P, and that
No,
could be
no, you
whatever
have to
printer.
define what hardware you have
You're
for
talking
it to
physical,
talk
yeah, the
to
physical
the.
interface.
It has to know what port and what protocol to talk to that parallel chip interface. The printer control language are the bytes it's going to actually wind up sending for the target printer.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I never used a printer, a large printer on a 2068, so I don't know how they did it with the printer interfaces. But I'm assuming we could probably emulate one of those, or look more into the retroprinter.com and see what they do.
But
Again, printer to PDF is what's on GitHub, and it's totally open source. So there might be some information there. I just took a quick read here.
So we could put that on there and not have to get a piece of hardware we have to put it through a twister.
So I want to ask a question here. So we have Jeff making a 2060 board that's going to get a USB keyboard so that we can use MScript, so that we can get a printer interface, so that we can use a line printer. Do I got that all wrapped up yet in a nutshell?
Yeah, what's wrong? What's wrong with that?
Are you new to this group?
Ultimately, Ryan, to answer your question, I guess you'd have to look at the documentation for your particular word processor, because they would tell you which interface it would be compatible with, and at that point, to get to Adam's snarky comment, it wouldn't be that difficult to spin a Raspberry Pi Pico, or Tim's suggestion, just to have a hardware interface to get out to a printer, because ultimately we're going to have to interface with modern printers anyway, because I sure don't want to bring my own Secocia down from the attic in the garage to.
Well, I like the idea that Tim of the hardware that Tim was describing, is that, yeah, it just sends it off and ships that job off to the Raspberry Pi print queue. It's just the getting it to that device, okay? And then he's saying that the software is open source, so conceivably we might be able to actually run that on this potentially, and just build that feature in. Because sort of related thing was, like, one, it always kind of surprised me. It seems like I don't know that any, but it seems like none of these printer interfaces bothered to use the existing extensible data stream feature called streams and channels that the system was designed to have, with a way to add a driver in it, but they all seem to avoid doing that and doing it their own way, requiring your software to support it, especially. Because one of the things I thought was, like, it'd be nice to figure out at least a plan so that we can make sure the hardware supports this plan, which is to be able to load a channel driver that I can hook to through BASIC, and I guess you could even do through machine code too, that talks through this board in some way that we could connect to an endpoint on another machine. And the endpoint then just receives data. And this endpoint could be a thing that turns it around and throws it in a print queue, or throws it into, a serial input. Like I can, kind of like connecting a terminal to your Linux box. You could use it, talk a terminal through there, and then, like, well, maybe that terminal got connected to an FTP server running or whatever. That kind of thing, but it could just be connected to a printer. And then you just open a stream to the channel, I guess it is, and then just start sending escape P2 characters through it.
Yeah.
Right. But it could be, I just send anything I send through there, it just gets dumped in a text file on the computer or whatever. I mean, we could obviously do something like that on the board because then you could say log it to this file on the SD card. There's always that too. I mean, that could be one of the options at the other endpoint of the, or maybe there's different drivers you load.
Another option would be to, if you save files from your word processor to the SD card, something can then just read that, understand the file format, and send it to the printer. In other words, you're not
Yeah, I
printing
mean,
from the word processor. You're just saying, "Oh, I need to take this particular file and send it to the printer," and let something like the Pico or some other part handle that. And
Hmm.
then your word processing software has no concept of what's going on, and your print option is totally separate from that software. So you don't have to modify it at all. You just basically run your mscript or TazWord, run, save the file to a disk, and then have something else come along and read that file and send it to the printer.
yeah, I guess this is where like if so, like some of these kinds of things we've talked about before, where these are extensions that could be built into the Pico. Um, like one was like give it a command and point it to a tap file. And I think Ricardo was looking at it, maybe pretty close. And I said, "Oh, hey, whoever it was wrote the thing that would take a basic command, a basic program in a tap file and turn it into a doc file. And he wrote it in Python. And guess what? The Pico runs, our TS Pico runs Python, and we just issue a command to it, tell it which tap file, and poof, you got your AROS doc file out of it. So in theory, some of that stuff could also be like, hey, go look in this tap file, read that, and if it had visibility to some printer, it could just turn around and then send it off.
Hmm.
I guess the things that I'm thinking about are like making sure we have the ability, at least later with software, to try to get that connectivity on to the computer. Now, in the case of if we don't, I kind of like the idea of that one where basically it's a Raspberry Pi in the tiny system hanging off the back, because that's a system that you can go in and definitely make talk to printers as an example feature, rather than worrying about, well, I can get the data to the computer. Okay, well, do you have Windows or Mac or Linux? And so if you have Windows, yeah, there's lots of development tools, but also, it's stinking difficult to get stuff to these kinds of things to work. So then unless you wind up making the thing able to talk to, of course, a Windows share or, that kind of thing. And maybe that's what you could do. Um, but yeah, being able to get the data to and even from the computer easily. I mean, SD cards are nice, but ultimately it just feels clunky, shipping the SD card back and forth. But I mean, I guess, that's obviously a physical thing. By the way, I think those are a little too small. I think we need to put them in the adapter and then make that what goes in the front.
The full size.
So
Yeah.
it feels a little,
My suggestion wasn't
maybe.
that you would copy data to the SD card and then move it somewhere physically. You would have the SD card readable via on the Timex side, and also readable on the Raspberry side or the Pico side. So it wouldn't physically move. You just have two different CPUs being able to read the same SD card.
Yeah, so I was just talking about the Pico. Then, if it has visibility to the other devices, it can then grab that data and send it off.
Hmm.
Well, Well, and to get to Adam's point, how many people are actually going to want to print a physical copy from their 2068? I can see where it would be nice to be able to upload, say, a color picture that's on the 2068 to the web or something. But
For me, I think the biggest thing is not so much to get it to a printer, but get the data out.
yeah,
Uh, so
Yeah.
I looked at some things on the ZX81, like memo text, a few things of those word processors, and you can't get data out for them. They save the document with the actual program. But I found that with memo calc, it did differently. It actually saved the data separately from the program. So that I could always then, if I wanted to, convert that to something else once I got it on disk. Asmic ROM does the same thing. You can take, when you save whatever's in the Asmic ROM locally, well, of course, I'm using emulator. It saves locally, and I can convert that to text because it's just needed to convert from the Sinclair character set to the ASCII. So remember, when I write things, I write on the Quill or Exchange using a QL emulator for everything. And then I just make sure I can convert that out to disk and then convert to RTF, then get into whatever word processor.
Uh,
It's not the end goal is to print from there. The end goal is just do all my writing there and then process it out later. So,
right. Hmm.
Yeah. And we do have challenges with the character set for special stuff, but obviously not the basic ASCII part.
getting from
Um,
ZX81 to ASCII is relatively easy. I wrote something that does that already.
well, it's still a piece that would have to be in the chain.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, so, well, I mean, for the 2068, that, by and large, depending on what characters you're using. Um, but yeah, so like a lot of the times it would just be, hey, maybe I type some text on there. I just want the text over, or in theory, like I'm supposed to be able to just do a, what is it, list to a stream, right? And just
Yep.
so
And
if I just had
yeah.
if that stream's endpoint was just poof, it went into a text file that I could just read. Okay. Now,
Uh,
granted, for a program, it's going to have more special characters, and those will need translation on the other end. And yeah, I could. It's probably given the tools now. It's probably best if I just save it to a TAP file. Um, and then as long, but then it would be kind of cool if, and maybe I'm thinking of this the wrong way. Maybe it's the part that I need is to pull it from the computer, like to be able to see the SD card from the computer. Maybe that's more the approach.
well,
Um,
why couldn't also, if you do L print, so you're in the 64 column, whatever program, and you then have it send out with L print, why couldn't the Pico, whatever's on the other side, just capture that? Uh, so, because I was looking at, you mentioned streams and channels, I did a quick look on that on the Spectrum, and channel three is for the printer. So
yeah.
something's monitoring channel three
well, I
on
think
the other side.
that kind of thing is part of what Gustavo's doing with his ROM in the TPI mode. If I'm correct on that, David, do you recall?
He just hijacks the L list, L print, and copy entirely because he's done a lot of enhancement to
I'm just unclear, like where does it go?
it.
I know he intercepts it, but okay, what happens?
Yeah, so it gets sent out to the IO port, IO 14 or something like that.
So
But
the Pico software has to listen for printing.
that's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And you know what, Tim, what you just said sort of triggered something for me is if because the L but built-in commands, assume a 32 character line length. Um, but there's nothing preventing you from doing like uh, you know, Tim Horner and listening to that data bit stream and then taking line one and tacking line two onto the end to get 64 columns. You have to do some
So
count.
there's a question, David. You say it assumes 32 characters. Does it assume that, or just as in, I'll call it actively assume, like after 32 characters, it throws a carriage return, or does it just say, hey, 32 characters went by, it's going to wrap, and I don't really need to do anything. Therefore, if the thing is 64 characters wide, it'll just happen.
The routines don't even look into display file 2
Right.
for the data. So you get whatever's in display file 1, and I think whether or not it prints a carriage return will depend on
Oh,
how.
this is.
Yeah, it's
I'm
in the
sorry.
ROM.
Yeah.
Those always do an image print, though, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
So to actually have a print characters to a device, we have to have a different. We can't use the regular print routines. You have to set up a channel driver.
Yes.
Yes.
Because the existing print channel is going to go rasterize things. We need to set up a new driver that just takes the characters, possibly does some small manipulation, and then sends that on to the Pico. And then the Pico's programmed in some way to say what to do with that data.
Yeah.
Ryan?
Hi. There's
Hi,
Gustavo.
hello. This is Gustavo. Yes.
He's
No,
alive.
Yes, it's alive. I'm remote. I'm not at home, and that's why I have a low bandwidth. That's why I don't have video setting. But interesting discussion, and just only for clarification. The ROM of the TS Pico, if you have setting the TPI colon tape, the ROM automatically switch the printing routines to a special handle of the communication, and then send any character or any copy of the screen in low or high resolution mode to the Pico. Actually, the firmware inside the Pico is not support to process the frames with the data. The data is possible to handle in the same way that you storage a file. Okay, you have a different header to detect that this is an lprint command or copy command. Both routines are supported by the ROM, standard ROM of the Pico. It's not implemented yet in the hardware. The only enhancement regarding to the original ROM is that the lprint support color. You can print in color to the printer. You can put lprint ink 7, ink 4, ink whatever, or paper, and then change the paper and ink color dynamically. That is not support for any printing of the Sinclair Spectrum or Timex. This is an enhancement. And also you can send UDG on the fly, because you can define the UDG character and then I'll print this character and send out to the printer the bitmap of this specific character in real time. This is another enhancement. You need to not set in nothing. You need to do load any driver, nothing. Just only put TPI colon tape.
So are you saying that it's sending rasterized images or to the Pico?
Yes, of course, in high resolution too.
Yeah, so I'm talking more about the character stream as an option.
Okay, you can put, for example, lprint, character pesos, character dollar, any number, or you can set any number up to the ASCII table, not as a token, as a binary, with the prefix over. If you use the prefix over, you send up to 128 value, the over ASCII value. Okay, for example, to send the code 255, you only need to print lprint over 1 and then ch character 127 because set the bit number 8 with this prefix. The logic is very complete, and I suggest use the routine inside the TPI ROM.
Yeah, I guess I didn't understand that last example completely.
Okay, I will provide to you a reference of this if you like to see.
But are you
But
saying
yeah.
that's a mode that sends characters? Pretend like I'm trying to send data to a modem.
Okay, if for example, if you put as a standard mode with this TPI tape, you then print list enter. Any character of the basic program is sent in ASCII form with a frame, standard header, and then the data to the Pico, character ASCII by character ASCII. You can capture, for example, in text form and then put a file if you like, or create
so
any.
it is sending the character codes, but you're saying there's also a way it sends the images of the characters.
Depends. In case that you support UDC, because UDC is out of the ASCII range.
Oh, I see. So it's treating those special characters differently.
Yes, because it's a bitmap in reality.
Okay, I get it. All right. Okay. Because I was really just thinking that if we just had a generic way to get character data, and I guess additionally image data, at least to the Pico, and the Pico can then send that data on based on how we've set it, that, you've kind of got a generic way of getting image data and character data off to some other machine, potentially.
Yes, I understand. But for example, the TPI extended commands for lprint is very flexible and was thinking of developer in the beginning to reroute the ASCII stream to different devices. For example, actually it's not support in the firmware, but if you type save TPI : LPT space, for example, capture or any another extension, you can create a file inside the storage. Or if you put, I don't remember the name is MDM or something, you reroute the string to the modem. To the modem in the peripheral, not in the modem on the machine, okay? Because any character is passed to the printer, then is routed in the device to the output as a printer, modem, or any another device connected to the peripheral. That is the powerful of this command and this intercept of the data. This is the natural way to send out information from the Timex.
Okay.
Okay. And in the release one, we don't only support the save and load of the storage TPI commands. This very powerful tool. And this is another reason because it's impossible to modify nothing because I have a single byte extra in the ROM space. And because all these functionality are implemented but not used in the actual firmware.
Okay.
Gustavo.
Yep.
Here, Johan Koolman here. Yes, I'm joining for a short time. I can't seem to get my picture on it, so you have to do it by voice at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
As I hear you speaking, I think the Pico is more acting like an interface 1 and using the streams to exchange data between devices and not as much as a printer device. Am I correct?
Yes, correct. I reroute only the standard printer device output. I not reroute or modify any channel or streams different for the tree. Okay, tree is the printer channel. This happened because the implementation of the commands TPI 40 years ago was to support a listing in another computer, not on the thermal paper. Okay, the idea was extract the listing of the programs in BASIC or an assembly language to different printing. And this printer, in my case, is not connected to the Timex. That's why I modify the ROM and create these specific commands and ROM also to storage and also to capture the program. Okay. Now, with the pass of the years, we have a new tool. It's a Pico, the Pico board, that can use these specific commands to enhancement and also to create more powerful basic functionality. One of the main idea with this command is use from the basic. You don't need any special knowledge to use. Okay, just only use save load and then enter. Okay, in basic. Okay.
Yeah, as I recall, it's just like the interface one is acting upon on a network where you could send files over a network as well with open channel 1, 2, 7, 8, whatever, and then you send it over that channel a full file, and it doesn't matter if it's a picture or a text or whatever. It just sends out the file, and I think that's a bit what you're saying as well.
Yes, of course, and we thinking to support the REST array intercept in the next board of the chef board to support this feature with extended commands. That is the next step of the Pico operating system, but not in the actual hardware. No, it's maybe new release.
And what about? I don't know if this is what has been in the conversation, but if you want to make a printout to a printer, and it's a picture or something like that, then you need to send out control codes. And I made a program for sending a picture from the ZX Spectrum to a non-ZX printer, for instance, an Epson printer or whatever, and it had to send some control codes before you could send a line of data, and it's not working like the copy command. That's not working on the not ZX printer like the GP50S or something like that.
Yes, I understand, but this is different internal process. For example, in the copy command is the more low level instruction. I send, if you are working in the standard Timex mode, is 32 columns, I send only the 6K of the memory, the video memory, to the Pico. And then the Pico process in raw the data to send out the printer. In case that you have the second screen enabled or high resolution mode, I send the full screens to the Pico, and then the Pico need to interleave the memory and create the output in the printer. That is the process how this works. You have the data as the computer has in the memory. That is the idea. Then the Pico process the information. Is clear or?
Yeah. So, I mean, the portion about doing the screen copy is reasonably clear to me. To rephrase what you just said, you're literally dumping whatever's in display file one or with high resolution
Yes,
modes, do you do both display files, Gustavo?
yes, of course. I send
Okay.
the display file 0 and display file 1.
Okay. So
The idea
you're
to,
just doing a sort of a raw data dump
yes, exactly,
to the Pico, and then the Pico figures out what to do with that
exactly,
information.
exactly. I do that because I don't have space in the ROM to process any
Yeah.
interleave or nothing.
Well, I mean, you've got
Uh,
that 8K in the XROM, but we'll,
yeah,
set that aside for now. But for LPrint and LList, uh, what are you sending? You're sending the ASCII data,
yeah.
the characters to the Pico.
ASCII plus extension of the tokens as the standard listing work. For example, if you have in the middle of the
Oh,
basic,
oh,
uh,
you expand the tokens.
exactly,
Okay,
you receive ASCII
okay. So
plus the control codes, no?
yeah. So what about the 3 or 4 characters? Oh yeah, yeah. What about the characters that are on keys 1 through 8? The little graphics characters.
I send the token of the color and then the number of the color
Oh no, no,
as
the little graphics in between they're
The
just
block graphics.
the square
I think he was saying that he sends the code for those plus an image. Is that correct, Gustavo?
for example, if you type the color in the middle of the program, as you can set
yeah.
uh, in the normal behavior on the screen, you see a different color of the listing of the program listing, right?
Yep.
Okay, if you change the color and then set blue, red, or any color, you receive a prefix token with the color of ink or paper,
Hmm.
and then the number of the color. You need to process this to create the output.
But what if you used the special graphic token that's on the 5 key, which is a black. It's if you take a square and divide it into 4 quadrants, the 2 left quadrants are black, and the 2 right quadrants are white on the 5.
In this case, if you have a special token, I send the prefix. You remember that the Pico communication has a header plus the data, okay?
Mm-hmm.
In the header, you receive not text character, you receive a binary character.
Okay.
And then the 8 bytes of this specific token or UDC.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
you to pass at the dot mode in any printer and select the dots.
Okay. Okay. And so then it's up to the Pico to sort that out.
Exactly.
Cool.
So, for example, David, you could take, in the case of the block graphics, the Pico does get the code for the character in the header. It could opt to turn that into the corresponding Unicode character to
Right.
pass on if it wanted to do that.
Right.
Or if it's going to, say, an Epson printer, it could opt to then go send escape codes to send a bit pattern
As the right.
and use the bit pattern that was given.
And the same thing for the UDGs. You could
Yes.
you just like you say, this is a UDG. I'm going to send the bit pattern in Escape P2 magic. Okay. Okay. So all we need to do just is write some code that runs on that mini Pico that talks to talks Escape P2 over USB.
For example, if you change the paper color in the middle of the listing program,
Yeah.
you receive the first character is 17,
Yeah.
and then the color number. This is paper control, or 16 in the case of ink control, or bright or inverse is 19 or 12 or 20.
And
Okay.
Gustavo is
Yeah.
16 or 17, I don't know off the top of my head. Are those the Timex codes for ink and paper?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right.
And also inverse
I
over
think
add
that's is
tab.
that the hex code? I think that's the hex code, right?
I don't know. Hex, you mean hex? Gustavo, do you mean decimal 16 or hexadecimal 16?
No, decimal. In X
Decimal.
is 11, 11, 12.
Okay. So that's control code region.
Exactly.
Yeah, because control 8 is like Bell or something, or control whatever. Anyway. Okay.
Any of my implementation and full compatible with the Spectrum and Timex code.
Okay.
Consulting my reference. Yeah, ink is 16 decimal, paper 17 decimal. Oh, I was thinking of the inverse. Never mind. Okay, but yeah, those control codes from 16 to 21 decimal.
And
Yeah.
and Ryan, when you say consulting your reference, you're literally talking. I'm just going to spotlight you for a second. You're literally
Remember
talking.
remember
I do.
these old
I want you
things?
to plug them. I want you to, tell us the value of this thing.
Value of this thing is I don't have to reach over there and open up my manual to the tab paper and put more. That, luckily, I'm using one of the extra ones I got to suffer all the wear and tear. So, but this helps because then you got your decimal and hex, the character. Well, of course, we're in the control area, so let's look down here. So you got a character. Um, I'll also, if that character has a, these are the what the ZMake base
Yeah.
equivalents.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you need to put those in a source document in your computer that's for source code, you would use those instead. And then there's also how to type them. There's a little, I guess there's that little
Little guides.
cheats for the cursor mode and shifts to get to these keys. And then what some of these control codes are. And I'm seeing it backwards, so it's a
It must be telling
difficult,
you.
but yeah, and
Uh,
then on into the graphics, block graphics and keywords.
Yep.
So that's real handy if I'm like looking at memory and I'm like trying to look for a keyword in memory, I can just quickly
Search for
find it and get its code to see, if I'm got the right keyword and that I'm finding in memory or something like that, or simply just translate the decimal to
Yeah.
decimal to
Ryan,
hex and back.
Ryan, so only,
Yes.
only for your reference. When the LPrint is in text format, I exchange with the Pico the character type. The character type could be ASCII, is value is 1, 2 is a bitmap in case UDG, or a different printer flag listing. For example, you remember on the variables, system variables, you have the attribute, color attribute permanent. I
Yes.
exchange this value to the Pico because you need to know what is the color that you're using on the screen, okay, to reproduce
Right.
the exact copy of the image. And also the printing flag. I send to you also the exchange of the system variable flags, printed flags, okay? You have all the information to recreate the exact copy of the screen.
And I just want to share that thing that you just showed us, Ryan, is on the website. If you go to Ryan's
okay.
individual page, and it's list. There's one for you have one for the 81/1000, and you've got one for the Spectrum 2068.
Right.
Yeah, so it's just about who's going to do the investigation of how to write um, how to print from a Pico to a printer over USB. I mean, the ESC P2 part seems like the easiest of that. I wonder if that even exists. A Pico, a Raspberry Pico Pi library for.
So I think the other thing Gustavo said was that he's only intercepting stream number 3.
Gustavo, are you
Is that
intercepting the stream or are you just
No, I replaced the ROM routines.
ROM routine? Right.
I'm not working with the streams because if in case you have, for example, an Ergo printer interface, you load the driver and this total compatible with any printing driver exists in the world. That's why I not intercept nothing.
No, I
Just
guess
only change.
I'm confused. Are you saying you're compatible with the other drivers because you don't interfere with them? Is that how you're saying that?
Exactly, because the
Okay.
normal output in the ROM of the ROM routine, I intercept this, and the method to send the data to the printer is different. In case that the thermal printer, you send dots. Okay. In this case, I send the data directly to the Pico. That's the reason, because it's compatible 100% with any software available. And also you have, in case that you send the command save TPI : tape to return to the tape output, you can use the standard AlphaComp or 2040 printing, and also works fine with the thermal printing connected. In the standard tape output, you use the standard printer in the machine. You don't lose the standard communication with the thermal printing. You have both. Depend if you are using tape or SD card.
Right. That's when it's in the Pico / SD card mode, you're capturing the data and sending it to the Pico. But if the user switches to the tape mode, uh, the original ROM routines are there, basically?
Yes.
Okay. And so it sends to whatever the real device is.
Okay. So I'm just a little confused in the Pico mode. I know you're saying you're replacing the ROM routines and you say you're not intercepting. But you're obviously grabbing something.
Well,
is it the channel, the stream, or something else? Because basically LPrint's equivalent to printing to whichever channel that is. I forget which number.
In channel 3 is P in letter or 3 in number.
Print #3 is equal to LPrint.
Right. So either you're intercepting channel 3 or printing to channel 3 calls the ROM routine and you just replace the ROM routine that it winds up calling. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. But I not replacement the offset in the stream table, because the stream table continue pointing to the original ROM addresses.
So you could take.
So for example, if I open channel 3 on some other device, or open stream 3, sorry, on some other channel, it won't go to the printer. It won't go to your routine anymore. If I say print, okay.
Go to my routine. If you have select SD card. If you go to the original Timex routine, if you put tape on the TPI.
Yeah, I understand that part. I'm just trying to figure out what precisely am I directing data to, whether it's And it sounds like it's really ultimately the channel of printer is points to the ROM, and that's where your routine gets it.
Steps in. Yeah. And if you changed where the channel pointed to, you had another, you know,
Decision branch.
another printer, driver sitting in RAM somewhere else, and you changed where that channel points from ROM to point to this other thing, then LList and LPrint would go to that other thing.
Yeah, I don't know that you can change the channel pointer for the printer though.
I don't remember off the top of my head if you can. If
But
500.
maybe you
In a,
can. I thought that was the idea behind the streams, is that I could ideally tell the software, hey, by default, print to stream 3 and you'll get to the printer, and then I could just open stream 3 on some other thing and redirect it. But if it prints directly to the device, the channel, then you can't do that sort of thing.
it's
I
full
think
compatible.
it's redirecting to the device. I used a similar trick in this AT emulator from Gert Lunter, where you could redirect output to a text file, and using channel 3, I could use with LPrint to make listings from my files to a text file. So that was quite handy to do.
And so when you did that, were you changing where the stream pointed to or where the channel pointed to?
Uh, First, you had to select on the emulator the interface 1, and then
Yeah.
you opened channel 3 as a text device,
Mm-hmm.
and then you printed the data you had to that channel, print hex 3 text, and then it went into a text file
Okay. Okay.
on PC. That's how I created a lot of sources I had on my Spectrum into a PC version.
Makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
And there's one other thing I think. Um, I hear Gustavo talking about using the Alphacom printer or the thermal printer. What if you connect a non-ZX Spectrum printer to the Spectrum with the printer interface? For instance, a parallel printer I had back in those years. If you want to make a print to that device, then you have to send call codes as well. And I still have a small booklet with code to a not ZX Spectrum printer. So it might be usable to send those codes to a USB printer as well, I think.
Yes, no, of course. The idea is because the USB stack is high in process to run on the CID. That's why you need a coprocessor to run the USB interconnection. It's high demand, and also the timing is very precise to response or whatever. That's why for USB application is necessary another microprocessor. In this case, a Pico. Okay. I assume that if you are running Epson escape P2 commands over the USB, you only to send the raw data as a normal LPrint process when you have a Centronic port. I thinking that the Epson not change nothing. USB is just only a connectivity issue. It's not a protocol different. Okay.
The Centronic port is capable of printing characters, yes, but when you send a bit image, you have to send control code so it won't react as a character code, but as a bit image. So you have to send control codes to it as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the magic of this is you need to replace nothing in the ROM because the operating system on the TS Pico works with this specific capture of the data in text or in binary or raw image of the screen. Okay, and support a high resolution mode because I send both screens to the Pico, and then the Pico needs to recreate in the standard printing as you have connect to this device, if you like some HP or whatever, or BMP also. You can create a virtual screen creating a BMP file. Okay, this is another option.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then the Pico can do the
Yeah,
magic of turning that into the escape codes that the printer needs for the bitmaps.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's secondary to support the USB Connect Direct online to the printing because if you have the files, you get the BMP or get the text file and then you print in your PC or Mac computer in any printing.
Yeah, that's true. It's true too.
You know, yeah. Or PDF. If you create a PDF, great. Get the file and then printing whatever, printing or send by email or whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
David,
Yes, sir.
maybe we can see if there's any other
Well, I see Ingo showed up
things to talk about.
in the last 15 minutes. Ingo,
Guys,
how you doing?
I'm doing well. Just been crazy busy, so I just now was able to join the group, and I thought I'd be a fly on the wall for a little bit while you guys were discussing all those goodies. How's everybody else?
Good. Ingo, you're not a big 2068 person, are you?
Not yet. I own one. I bought one online, and then I got another one for my brother from Stewart, and we've been so focused on the KiloZ project that I don't want to throw any time at anything until we get KiloZ done.
Yeah.
But my brother and I have already talked about a few things that are 2068 related, and I really want to start getting to where I get a little bit of parity with you guys on the Pico project and everything. Right now, I'm just haven't really been able to truly participate.
Okay. Um, and Christian, you came in a little bit late. Christian, do you know what a 2060 is?
Yeah. What now? What was that?
A 2060. It's a so let me see if I can find this picture. There's a when Timex
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood, David. I thought you said a 2068.
well, yes, and that right. So I was leading into that. They're connected.
Okay. Okay.
It's not it wasn't total random. Um and I'm trying to remember where I have that picture. Oh, I think I can just bring it up off my computer. Um so Christian, to catch you up, Timex uh proposed a device. Can I make this any bigger? Um, view attachment page. There we go. Oh, cool. There we go. Now I can share it. Timex proposed a device called the 2060. And here's the complete system, right? You've got your 2068 there with a cartridge just kind of hanging out. I don't know how it's hanging out like that, but there it is. There's this unit that the 2060 itself is kind of slotted into, and that's called the 2060. And that it was the 2060 bus expansion unit. On the top right is a 2020 cassette player. Top left is a 2050 modem. Those little things on top are called micro drives, and they would have taken a little. Actually, you have one of those cassettes, Christian. That little cassette that.
I have an example here.
Oh yeah, Ryan, let me spotlight you for a sec.
Ah,
So
yeah, those.
okay, so Ryan, that's a micro drive tape, right? Um, How do I remove spotlight? Okay. And then off to the left is a 2080 printer. Uh, Timex, they got out the cassette drive, the cassette thing on the right hand side that you see. The modem was finished, and the manufacturer had them. Um, but Timex went out of business before then, before they could take ownership and start shipping them. I don't think that the tape drives got to be anything more than the mock-ups that we're looking at now. And the 2060 itself would have hardware inside of it to make the micro drives work and some other features. And so this has been a long desired thing for folks who have a 2068 computer, to get something that looked like it. And a couple folks have like built their own out of cardboard or whatever. Jack Boatwright and somebody else. I don't know if Carl built his in.
David,
Yes.
I'm reading the document you present in the public regarding this specific expansion.
Yes.
Inside this box, you have the interface one plus the buffers for connect more devices on
That's
the
correct.
back part.
That's correct. Yes.
And also the expansion back units, because you drive till 2 devices in the standard machine, and you can expand to 4 or 5 peripheral on the back with these specific buffers.
Yep.
And one of the important issues this box is also you have the audio and video buffers. You can connect and monitor.
I don't think that those are buffered. I think that those are just extensions of the built-in signals.
Oh, I don't remember that it's the video signals is handled by this box too.
Yeah, I think everything just plugged in. So anyway, and by the way, you can tell that all of this is prototypes just by the bubbling of the little keyboard overlay. If you look closely at I wonder if I can zoom in anymore. Oh, that's maximum zoom in. If you look closely on the right-hand side of the space bar, the little sticker is clearly peeling up, and the right-hand corner and the left-hand corner, lower left-hand corner, is clearly peeling up.
Yes.
Anyway, Jeff and some other folks are working on making this happen.
That would be nice.
Yes. And Ingo, this is where I was getting to with, asking you if you were a 2068 person, if this was a thing that, that you would be interested in as well. Because ultimately my question is, what do you consider a reasonable price point for this?
The finished product, so like the case with all the internals and everything in it.
That's correct.
In today's dollars?
Well,
120?
think about essentially as being designed and built by a bunch of hobbyists. That's the
Right.
caveat, the big caveat here.
Right. I mean, I guess the price point would just have to cover the raw materials and some time, you know. Uh a lot of it could be open source though.
Oh, certainly, yes. But
And
you
and that
still
way
run.
people with the means, yeah, could just kind of, you know, do whatever combination of doing everything themselves to having a finished one shipped to them.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, yes. The STLs for the shells will be available.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
All the
because
stuff for
Carl and I have already been talking to my brother about modeling the original 2068 case to be a replacement for ones that are old, worn, or broken,
Mhm.
and maybe even creating a model. We've all talked about creating a model where the top cover has the cutout for a full mechanical keyboard.
Yes, right.
In fact, I think it was our last meeting where Carl brought that up too. We were talking about that. So, but yeah, I mean, having the 2060, that would be super cool.
So, assuming you're not a person that wants to DIY it all yourself,
Mhm.
what's a reasonable price point?
That's a good question. I wouldn't know where to start really, because I mean, value is in the eye of, what's it worth to you? Anybody that has a 2068 and always wanted one of these, they probably pay quite a bit more than anybody else to
Yeah,
get their hands on it,
good point.
right?
Yeah, yeah. It's a good way of expressing it. It's not going to look like this. I think that we're going to have a little bit more vertical space on that flat portion
Mhm.
because we intend to have the SD card socket there and a 128 by 96 OLED as an option for an information display.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it'll be a little. I think it'll be a little bit taller than this, but we'll see. It depends upon. Fortunately or unfortunately, you cannot get into fisticuffs in Zoom. So we have to find some other way to settle.
Well, wait a minute. So like there's shadow boxing, so how about some Zoom boxing?
Not enough people are running NT, so I can't just kick them off the internet anymore.
Remote controlled Rock'em Sock'em robots.
Oh
There you
yeah,
go. There you
there we
go.
go.
Good one,
Hey,
Tim.
Dave.
Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
Rock 'em, yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
David. I just had a thought when you said about the SD card uh,
Going in the front.
receptacle on the front.
Yep.
Um, in my noodlings of a notional case for such a thing, I toyed with the idea of having, Carl and I talked about like, okay, maybe they're on the top there, but also had thought about on those sides around that come around the side of the computer
Make it vertical.
and having a vertical thing there. And
Yeah.
I get, but either way, but that made me think like, okay, that might be a little easier. Like I know we're going to be taking a ribbon that extends it from the board to that. The thought was just like, oh, could you just have a thing another one that plugs into that, and it would go into a micro drive enclosure that had just
The
had the other end of the SD card in it that you would just could set there,
Yep.
plug into that in the front
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
if
and
you
so my,
wanted.
based on that, my thinking is that oh, we'll need to have a slot somewhere in the back, right, where you can route one of those ribbon cables through.
Yeah,
Um, I'm kind of loath to put yet another connector because there'd have to be a connector from the circuit board to the connector on the back of the case that you
yeah,
would
you'd
then
really
plug.
want to route it around the side or the back.
Yeah, I don't want to. I
In
don't want.
fact, that picture, I think the connectors on those things are actually on the right sides there. So
Oh
I'm not
yeah,
really sure.
yeah. I
I'm
don't
not
know
really
how they
sure
figured to do that because exactly.
I
Gee,
don't know where the cables, I think in the drawing, it has those no, I think it refers to those connectors being on the right side of the unit,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think. Or did I get it flipped around? It must have come off, must come off the left. Then they could come out to the side. I don't really know how they planned on you
Connecting them physically.
connecting them up because on the interface one, they come off, they very specifically, don't they come off the left side?
Yeah, yeah. And unlike the TI, you would stack your micro drives out to the left,
Yeah.
whereas with the TI, it's stacked out to the right.
Yeah. So you have your TI, you could have your TI next to your
That's right.
Sinclair and it would go the other way.
You'd be right in the middle of a very long desk. All right, all right. Um, well, on that note, our next week meeting is quite a ways, relatively speaking, away because today's the Today's the 13th, and one, two, three. It's actually going to be 3 weeks away. Monday, May 5th. Cinco de Mayo. Or if you're an Arrested Development fan, the day that comes after Cinco de Cuatro.
¿Segura? Le preguntaste a Ana.
So,
Preguntarle porque hay más figuritas. What is the local US Standard Time?
what time is it? You mean now, Gustavo?
Yeah,
It's 4 o'clock
it's
Eastern.
okay. It's 1 hour different.
Oh yeah, we're in that weird period where it's 1 hour of difference.
Okay.
You're in the future.
Yes.
Yes. Listen,
Thank-
Gustavo, can you tell me what lotto numbers get picked for my region?
Okay. Send by email.
Thank you. I'm sure they'll get here in time. Maybe I should ask Tim.
Oh, I
I'm
just
in the
remembered.
past.
I wanted to ask Ingo if he saw that was it Adrian's basement video?
I fell out of my chair. I was sitting on the couch. I kid you not. I was sitting on my couch watching his video, right? My brother had sent me a text like just the day before, I think it was,
Okay.
saying that he commented on one of my videos, and I put a ha 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 on his text, like, yeah, right, funny, whatever. Thought he was just messing with me. I was sitting there, I'm watching that video, and all of a sudden he goes to my blog post, and I was just like, oh, like my 5 seconds of fame. It was awesome.
Yeah, I thought he did pretty well in general. Not too much cringy stuff where, you know, so many of those things where I see where they're like, wait, don't show me a manual. I must tap on this keyboard for 15 minutes to figure it out rather than look at the manual.
Mm. hmm Yeah, so you're internet famous, Ingo.
Infamous.
Right. I mean, so if in the past it was 15 minutes of fame, in sort of the regular media world, is does that translate to 5 seconds in YouTube, or do you have another 10 seconds coming?
You know, nowadays, if you can get 5 seconds of somebody's attention before they scroll past you to something else, right? As they're doing that scroll of death. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that on my last video that I posted, I'm happy if people are watching the first 30 seconds, because that's what the analytics kind of show. People drop off. You can tell who the real hardcores are, right? Because they're sticking through to the very end to see the screenshots from the Westby, right? But yeah, most people are like, okay, pass. That's all right. I'm doing it for the fun. So,
And Ingo, we can all now say that we knew you when we knew you before you were an internet YouTube star.
that's right. I promise I won't forget my roots.
Yeah. In 5 years, we'll be saying, "Oh yeah, Ingo, I remember him."
You're
Yeah.
saying like, oh, he was doing so well, then that happened.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
like
right.
All Stars.
It was downhill from there.
He was doing so well.
The tragic story, the tragic life and times of Ingo Schmid. No doubt.
Well, maybe I can sell some of this footage to the eventual, documentarian.
There you go. Hey, actually, uh I've been showcasing Kilo's Ed stuff on here several different times.
Mhm.
And it looks like on your channel, those videos have gotten a few views. So it looks like there might be some interest in the Kilo's Ed.
Oh, absolutely.
Um
Yeah.
and actually with Carl's new motherboard, and if I get the low profile keyboards here soon, I'm hoping that for VCF we can set one up. That'll be kind of cool. See what kind of interest there is there, along with all our other goodies.
Yeah. 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 I'd hoped to get together my list, my starting list for what I'm bringing. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I can set the computer up, but I should also have like a little takeaway sheet, for folks, and then it just
Ooh, that's a good
kind of
idea. Yeah.
spirals out from there.
Yeah.
Feature creep.
That's exactly right. Well, the thing is, to me, it's about this is an education opportunity, right? This is an opportunity to show us off, and I don't want people to walk away and 2 weeks later, like, how do I find those guys again?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Having a flyer is
you've got a really
important.
good presence though. You've got a really good presence with your site and with all of these meetings that you've recorded on the channel, right? I think anybody that's looking up anything Timex Sinclair related is going to find something that you put up and going to find us. They may not immediately get to the Groups IO site or anything like that or get onto this list for this video call, but they're gonna find it. You've done a good
Yeah,
job of putting a lot of stuff out there.
yeah, but people are
Yeah,
like me and they have terrible memories.
I think like
They do.
if we just have a display set up it's kind of like the site, um, and talks about the list and the Zoom meetings, and then just really just, some business cards almost that they could just grab with the web link,
Yeah.
to take
Yeah,
like, oh,
one
that's
of those
cool.
codes, right? QR code, so that
Code.
they can
QR
just
code
snap it. They
or
can snap it with their phone and already have the link.
That's a good point. Yeah, yeah,
Don't get me
or
started on the
a printed link because lots of these people will be older.
that's right.
That's right. That's
That's right.
right.
How do I do this QR
Business
thing
cards
again?
are a good idea.
Maybe I should hand out cassette tapes.
There you go.
Yeah, and the web link is encoded.
Okay, David, do you need a new game for it?
There we go.
So,
Well, actually, Johan, I'm gonna have a 1000 set up. It's in this crazy Cradle keyboard, and it's gonna have a little screen, but I'm gonna need something to run on it, and I can guarantee you, I'm not gonna be the person to write that thing just because I have so many other things that I need to be doing. Uh, if you want to write a program, the demo that we run during the VCF, I would not turn that down.
Okay.
And the machine will
Um,
have 16K of RAM, so you don't have to, constrain yourself.
well, I think it's much nicer to show something what can be done in 1K
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well. And of course, 16K is nice as well. What you do in 1K, and I don't know if you took a look on Sinclair ZX World this year, but I already released 7 games, 7 games this
yeah,
year,
yeah.
and at the moment I'm working on a 1K version of Missile Command. So that will be released, I think, in a few weeks, so days, I think. So it's
Okay.
quite far-fetched already.
That's really cool. Well, think about it. Think about, what we can do, because I would love to showcase one of your programs. Absolutely. And then have a little plaque that says, and you can go get the rest of Johan's programs here,
Yeah.
right?
You already did over 130 games, so you still have some time to play them all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. No, and I'll bring your books because I have them, and I'll put them on a little, stand next to the computer so people will know that they exist, and that they can go to Amazon and get them. So
we
I
should
just
we
got a
should
message
make
that
ZX
they got,
Lespies that have all his games already loaded on them, right?
it wouldn't take much.
got I'm sorry, I still have to make a few games because the rest of the are still not still memory there. It's still on the case code. How many games can there go on that code? Yeah.
Yeah.
How many memory is on an SD card?
Oh, yeah.
32 MB.
Well,
I'll
no,
make them
actually
all
the Westby uses its built-in memory, and I think it's what 8 meg left over or something. Is that right, Ingo?
There's different discussions on that. I haven't pried into it myself yet, but that's one of
Okay.
the things on my list to do is to find out how much you can actually
Store
store
in
on
there.
one, and whether I read somewhere about a 1 meg barrier, but or that you could only store on 1 meg of it, but that was enough for the whole catalog. But then somebody else said that you can extend that and use more of that flash memory, but
Okay.
I can't confirm or deny any of it. So
Okay. Cool. All right. All right. Well, on that note, I'll see you in 3-ish
3 weeks.
weeks. Yes.
Cinco de Mayo.
Yes. Yes. Thank you
That's
guys.
right.
Sign off right now because I'm
See you.
going back
Bye bye.
up early tomorrow. So do maybe another time. We have to be on Sunday because Monday they have to
Let's talk
do
at the next Sunday meeting in May. I'll make sure it's on the agenda.
if I make some time. I wasn't able to take some time today. So
Okay. And if not, you and I can meet individually. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.